ranging from about zero point 0.1 volt per second to and 100 volt per second are typical, with improved behavior for larger values of full capacitance. The second imperfection, which appears during hold intervals, is known as fade-through. This is caused mainly by capacitive effects in the switch, and it is manifest as a small fraction of the input being present in the output. So what will happen when we are having a hold to sample transition? So when the hold command changes to sample, the switch is closed. The sample and hold circuit resumes passing the input to the output. So this process does not occur instantaneously. The capacitor must be recharged to a new value. The relevant parameter is known as accusation time. A typical value might be 5 microseconds for a full-scale transition to within 0.01% of 10 volts. Notice that in situations where the sample command is quite short, the action of the device is reasonably referred to as sample and hold. But when the sample state is on for comparatively long intervals, then it might more appropriately be called track and hold. In other words, the action during sample is for the output to track the input. The sample command closes the switch after a hold or sample delay, and then the hold capacitor charges to the input level. So the thing, these are all the process which is taken place when you are having about an sample and hold. What about generalized sample and hold circuits? Actually, this means CMOS switch in the sample and hold circuit, which has a low impedance when turned on and a very high impedance when it is in off. The voltage across capacitors follows the analog voltage when the FET is on and holds the DC level of the analog voltage when the FET is turned off. During the off period, the ADC measures the DC level of the analog voltage and converts into a digital signal. Since the sampling frequency of the analog signal, the varying amplitude of the analog signal can be represented in a digital format during each sample period and then stored in a memory. The analog signal can be regenerated from the digital signal using a DAC. There is a time delay when using a sample and hold circuit because of the time it takes to convert the analog voltage into a digital equivalent. This can be seen from the waveform. So what about the sample waveforms? Actually, the sample and hold model is used to freeze the input to the analog to digital while the analog digital conversion is in progress. Otherwise, the A to D would be attempting to converge to a final answer under a contradictory conditions of unsteady input. The logical module orchestrates the alternation of the two phases, convert while hold and does not convert while update. Normally, this is slave to a system clock so that the sampling is done at equal time intervals. A hypothetical input signal and sample and hold output are shown in the things below. The conversions of the A to D are presumed to take place and to be completed within the hold intervals. Thus, the input waveform is digitized at intervals spaced C is equivalent to H plus S apart. So, the sampled waveform will be a more faithful redemption of the original continuous waveform when the sampling interval is small. Okay, the thing is to be that so when we are having the function of signal conditioning, so we have to concentrate about modification or modulation. It means to change the form of signal. The signal may be smoothened, linearized, filters, or converted into an digital form. Whereas in the case of an impedance matching, the signal conditioning equipment arranges the input and output impedance of the matching device so as to prevent loading of the transducer and to maintain a high signal level at the recorder. Whereas in the case of a data processing, to carry out mathematical operations such as like addition, subtraction, differentiation, integration before indicating or recording of data. Whereas for the data transmission, in order to transmit signal from one location to another without changing the contents of the information. The whole task of signal conditioning requires the following ingenuity, proper selection of component, faithful reproduction of signals. Okay.